Hey guys, okay, on this video we're going to be studying about and learning and doing some problems about still volume, but now obviously the volume of composite figures. Okay, and what this means is that we now no longer have just one rectangular prism to find the volume of. We have two and sometimes three. So we know that to find volume, we learned in that previous video that you're going to use, obviously, for the volume of a rectangular prism, we're going to use, grab a different color, length times width times height. So we've got to know we need three dimensions to figure out, and three numbers to figure out what the volume of a rectangular prism is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the shape and say, okay, well, I've obviously got two rectangular prisms stacked together, and we're going to label this one A and I'm going to label this one B. Okay, so for each one of these rectangular prisms we have to have a length, a width, and a height. So if I look at this top one, this light gray box right here, we need a length, a width, and a height for it. And sometimes we've talked about in class, sometimes it may be a little more difficult to find the dimensions of A because sometimes we got to figure out some things. So let's look at what we have, what we know. So again, we've got to find a length, a width, and a height. So that tells me I need to find a length, I need to find a width, and I also need to find a height. Now, when I draw that on there, I can obviously see that we are already given one of them for sure. This yellow part right here, this height is 10. Now, we've also talked about in class, it doesn't matter the order that you write these numbers in as long as you got the correct numbers, because multiplication is commutative, so you can kind of change the order around. So length, width, and height, as long as you have the correct three numbers and you multiply them correctly, then you will get the same answer. So on A, we know we're going to use 10. All right, now we got to look around a little bit. Now, for this width right here, we've studied in class. We know that the width of a prism is the same all the way through. So right here, when I look at this green portion right here, I can use something that I know to look through the shape and notice that, well, if this is the same, then so is this, and so is this. So I can use that. If I need to know this green, grab the green. If I need to know this side, well, and I know this side is the same, and so is this one, then I know that I can use 5 for that width. Okay? So now we need one more number because we have to have a length, a width, and a height, and we only have 2 dimensions so far. So the last one we have to find is this blue section right here. Now the blue section may not be as easy as the others to find because this one was easily identifiable. This one you have to look through the shape. Now this one you have to look a little bit too, but we've got to think about what we're given. So if I need this little piece right here, I can kind of look across from it and say, okay, well, this entire piece right here is 12, but I can't use 12 for the blue piece. So I have to look across from it and try to see, well, what else am I given? What do I know? See over here, that little 6? So I know this section right here, I'm going to use pink. This section right here, if this is 6, then so is this. So if I know that this entire length is 12 and this little smaller piece is 6, well then I can think, okay, 12 minus 6, what would that leave me here? And yes, it is 6. So we know that 6 is our third number for A. So now we have our 3 dimensions for the rectangular prism A. Now we need to find our length, width, and height for our rectangular prism B. When we look at this, we kind of see that, well, maybe that's a little bit easier because on B, everything is labeled for you because we have our 12 here, length, a width here of 5, and a height of 5. So that tells me there's my length, width, and height, my 3 dimensions already. So 12 times 5 is going to represent the length, width, and height for rectangular prism B. All right, so now we know when we're finding volume of composite figures, we know we're going to multiply these numbers together. And we know that it doesn't matter our order, we're just going to multiply them. So you can decide maybe to multiply on A, maybe multiply that 5 and 6 first and get 30. That way you know when you multiply it by 10, all we have to do is the 1 times 3, which is 3, obviously, and then put those 2 zeros. So you know you get 300 for A. Now you would get the same answer if you said 10 times 5 first and got 50 and then multiplied it by 6. You'd still get 300. So remember that multiplication is commutative, so you can kind of move those around if you need to make it easier on you to multiply. When you look at B, same kind of situation, but this time I'm going to say 12 times 5 first because I know that gives me 60. And when I go to multiply 60 times 5, 6 times 5 is 30, and I just need to add one more zero. So look, our volume for A and our volume for B are both 300. But we know when we're finding volume of composite figures, we can't just say 300 for our final answer. And if you look at your answer choices, you know 300 is not your answer anyways. So remember that the whole point of this is to know that volume is additive. So we're going to say A, rectangular prism A, plus the volume of rectangular prism B is going to give us our final answer. All right, so we're going to plug in 300 plus 300, and that obviously gives us a final answer of 600, and we know this is cubic centimeters. Remember, our units for volume are always cubic. So that means that this is your answer right here. All right, so on this question, it's very similar to the other one. It's still composite figures. What's different about this one is that even though it tells you that it's composed of 2 rectangular prisms, it's not divided up like the last one was. So we've got to kind of make a decision on how are we going to divide this shape up. So you have a few options. You could do it with a horizontal line right here. You could also do it with a vertical line right here. All you're trying to do is divide this shape up into 2 different rectangular prisms because we know how to find the volume of a rectangular prism by using length times width times height. So that's what we're looking for here. So I'm going to decide to divide this shape up using a vertical line right here to divide those 2 shapes. So now we have this bigger box or rectangular prism right here. We're going to mark that A. Okay. And then this back little small box right here for this rectangular prism, and we're going to mark it B. Okay, just like we did in the last one, we have a rectangular prism A, a rectangular prism B. And we know for each one of those, we have to have a length, a width, and a height. So we've got to find 3 different dimensions or numbers to represent the length and width and the height so that we can find the volume of each and then find the volume of the entire figure. So let's go with A first. So when I look at A, I can see that I need this length and I need this width. And I also need a height. So let's call this one the height on that shape. So obviously with A this time, all of my dimensions are actually labeled for you for A. So we're going to go ahead. Remember what we've talked about again, that multiplication is commutative. So I can use these numbers in whatever order I want to. As long as I'm multiplying them correctly, I should get the same answer. So I'm just going to go in order that they're listed. 8 times 5 times 2. So when I do that, I can multiply 8 times 5. That's going to give me 40. Multiply that times 2. That gives me 80. So I know the volume of rectangular prism A is 80. But I also need to know B. Now, B may be a little bit harder to see. You should be able to tell that one of our dimensions is definitely going to be 2. And then you may not can really see it technically, but you should be able to think, okay, well, if this right here is 8, the other side of this is going on and on, so it is also 8 as well. So this right here, I'm just going to kind of draw an arrow and say it's going to go the whole entire length the same as the other, so it's also 8 centimeters. So far I've got a 2 right here and 8 right here, and what I'm missing is this little piece right here. Let me grab a different color. All right, so we're missing this little piece right here. So what we've got to do is look at our picture. Okay, use what we know, what we're given. So if I know this entire piece right here is 4, but I only need the small piece, I've got to figure what is this. So it's kind of like what we did on the last one where we looked through the shape and used opposite sides are equal, where we know if this is 2, so is this, and so is this. So if I know this little piece right here is 2, and I know this entire piece is 4, 4 minus 2 leaves me with the yellow being 2 as well. I'm going to kind of draw a line because there's a lot going on right there. All right, so the 3 numbers I'm going to use for B is 2, 2, and 8. All right, so we're going to say 2 times 2 times 8. Because remember, the order doesn't matter. It just matters that we get the correct 3 numbers, we multiply them correctly, and then we should still get the same answer. All right, so I'm going to start with 2 times 2, which is 4. 4 times 8, which is 32. All right, and remember, we're always finding this, to find the volume of the entire composite figure, we know that we're going to add. We're going to say the volume of A plus the volume of B equals my final answer. So the volume of A was 80. The volume of B was 32. So together that gives me 112. Now, you also need to put cubic centimeters or centimeters cubed. Either way means the same thing. So 112 is your final answer on that one. All right, so what I want you to see is on the next page, these are the answer choices. And you can see we said it was 112 centimeters cubed, or cubic centimeters. And that is our answer right here. So remember, it can be written as cubic centimeters or centimeters with the little 3, which means cubes. Both are the same thing. All right, now what you're going to do is, based on these last 3 videos where we counted the cubes, we did length times with thumbs height, and we found the volume of composite figures by using length times with thumbs height, but also finding it for both rectangular prisms and knowing that volume is additive and adding them together. So you're going to use all 3 of those videos to complete the Master Connect assignment that is listed right under the videos. There should be a code there. If you have any questions, you can send me a message through Remind or School Status, or this afternoon when I go live on Google Meet from 12 to 1. So you can save those questions till then as well. But for now, I want you to go and complete that Mastery Connect assignment so that I can kind of see how you do. If you do not do well, you will have an option of me zeroing it out and giving you another opportunity to go back and watch the videos and try again to see if you can improve your grade. Because if you get good grades on these assignments, I am putting them in the grade book. So I do want to give you that chance. So right now, go to get the assignment done, and then I'll see you on Google Meet from 12 to 1 today. Thanks. Bye.